Have you ever stopped to think what it would be like to face the 10 plagues of Egypt today with all the modern technology we have? The answer will leave you speechless, because it's nothing like what you'd imagine. We're talking about supernatural phenomena so devastating they broke the spine of one of the most advanced civilizations of antiquity, Egypt in 1400 BC. A global superpower of the time. And before you think this is just another old biblical story with no connection to our modern life, hold that thought, because what's going to happen in the next few minutes will completely change the way you see human vulnerability, the limits of science, and even God's own power operating in real history. Don't leave now. But before diving into this entire analysis, I need to ask you a question that will seem strange at first. If you had the entire technological arsenal of the 21st century available, satellites, artificial intelligence, bioengineering, modern armies, global defense systems, could you stop supernatural plagues sent directly by God? Most people, when imagining this possibility, trust too much in human capacity and completely underestimate the divine nature of these interventions. But the Egyptians also trusted in their priests, their gods, their magic, and yet they were completely crushed one after another. And this misplaced confidence, my friend, will be the center of everything you'll hear from here forward. Stay with me. This happened around the year 1446 before Christ, when the people of Israel had been enslaved in Egypt for over 400 years, and God raised up Moses to confront Pharaoh and demand the people's liberation. The Bible tells us in the book of Exodus, chapters 7 through 12, that God sent 10 progressive plagues, each more devastating than the previous one, each attacking a specific aspect of Egyptian economy, religion, and infrastructure. These were plagues that lasted months, that destroyed harvests, killed animals, affected the health of millions, contaminated water resources, blocked out the sun, and culminated in the death of every Egyptian firstborn in a single night. The scale was apocalyptic. The intensity was supernatural. And the objective was clear, to demonstrate that the God of Israel was above all the gods of Egypt and above all human power. Don't look away now. And you know what's most impressive in this whole story? The plagues weren't stopped because Egypt developed technology to fight them. They were stopped only when Pharaoh finally gave in and let the people go after his own son died. Exodus 9:16 records God's own words, saying to Pharaoh, "But I have raised you up for this very purpose, that I might show you my power, and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth." This isn't a story about human incapacity alone. This is a story about divine sovereignty that cannot be resisted. And the way each plague was applied, systematically attacking each Egyptian deity and each pillar of trust of that civilization, permanently changed the course of history. This isn't theological exaggeration. This is a historical event that shaped 3 major religions to this day. This doesn't happen by chance. But here's a myth that many people believe, and that needs to be broken right now. Many people think the 10 plagues were amplified natural phenomena, like Nile floods, that would explain everything scientifically. This is not true at all. While some plagues have weak natural parallels, the sequence, the intensity, the precise timing, the distinction between Egyptians and Israelites, and especially the last plague, instant death of all firstborn in one night, have absolutely no plausible natural explanation. The Jewish historian Josephus, in the 1st century after Christ, recorded that the memory of these plagues remained alive and was recognized even by Egyptian historians, although they avoided talking about it out of national shame. Even being events they tried to erase from memory, the indirect evidence and the biblical testimony show something truly supernatural. And this part of the story, almost no one properly measures, but you'll understand better from here forward. And speaking of dimensions and impact, this part deserves to be explored in more depth because it directly connects with the question about facing these plagues today. If these same 10 plagues were applied not just to one country, but to the entire world simultaneously, as it would be in the hypothetical scenario, we'd be talking about total and immediate civilizational collapse. 100% of the planet's water resources transformed into blood. Swarms of insects on a global scale, blocking airports and paralyzing cities. Skin diseases affecting billions. Literal darkness covering entire continents for days. And finally, instant death of every firstborn of each family in a single moment. It's not just catastrophe, it's entering territory of divine judgment that has never been experienced on a planetary scale. And this changes everything when we try to assess our response capacity. Now let's talk about how modern technology would try to combat each plague specifically, and the limitations will leave you genuinely surprised. First plague, water transformed into blood in all the rivers, lakes and reservoirs of the world. Exodus 7:20-21 describes that not only the Nile, but all water stored in wooden vessels and stone jars turned to blood. The fish died and the stench was unbearable. Today, we try purification by reverse osmosis, activated carbon filters, distillation, and even emergency desalination from the sea. But if the transformation is supernatural and affects already purified water too, no filter works, because the problem isn't contamination, it's transmutation of the substance itself. Strategic reserves would last at most 1 week. After that, mass dehydration. Modern technology would buy time, but wouldn't solve the problem. Only divine intervention removing the plague would save humanity. This is not an exaggeration, and that's why, before getting into the technical details of the other plagues, it's worth stopping for a second to absorb what this first plague alone means in terms of social collapse. The UN estimates that a person needs at least 50 liters of water per day for survival and basic hygiene. Multiply that by 8 billion people, 400 billion liters per day. If all reservoirs and rivers turn to blood, the bottled water reserves in the entire world wouldn't sustain humanity for more than 3 days. 3 days. After that, violence over water, collapse of governments, widespread looting. Hospitals couldn't operate without clean water. Nuclear plants would enter critical state without adequate cooling, and all this from just the first plague. The second wouldn't even need to happen for us to already have absolute chaos. Here's the vulnerability we don't want to admit. We're totally dependent on resources we don't control. And here's the moment you've been waiting for since the beginning of this whole story. Let's analyze plague by plague and put side by side what happened in Egypt versus what would happen today with our technology. Second plague, frogs in absurd quantities invading houses, beds, ovens, according to Exodus 8:3-4. Today, we try control with pesticides, chemical barriers, exterminator drones, and even genetic modification to sterilize populations. But Exodus makes clear that the frogs literally covered everything, entered the palaces, the houses, the rooms. Scale impossible to contain. And when Pharaoh asked Moses to remove the plague, all the frogs died at the same time, leaving piles of rotting corpses. Modern pest control works against natural infestations, not against coordinated supernatural invasions. Technology would slow down the problem, but wouldn't prevent it. Next, third plague, lice or tiny mosquitoes covering people and animals. Exodus 8:16-17. Here the Egyptian magicians themselves said, "This is the finger of God," because they couldn't replicate it. Today, repellents, insecticides, mosquito nets, aerial fumigation would be tried. But if the plague attacks simultaneously on a global scale, there isn't enough industrial production of repellents for 8 billion people. And if the insects are supernaturally persistent, ignoring chemicals, as the text suggests, no barrier works. Fourth plague. Dense swarms of flies or flying insects separating between Egyptians and Israelites. Exodus 8:21-23. Here appears for the first time the geographical distinction. The land of Goshen, where Israel lived, was spared. Modern technology can't create this distinction. We could try to fence areas with physical barriers, but global coordinated swarms would paralyze agriculture and transportation. Planes don't take off going through clouds of insects. Data servers overheat if insects block ventilation. Modern infrastructure is more vulnerable than ancient on this point. Fifth plague. Devastating pestilence killing all the cattle, horses, donkeys, camels, oxen and sheep of the Egyptians, but no animal of the Israelites died. Exodus 9:3-6. Today, we try veterinary quarantine, emergency vaccines, broad-spectrum antibiotics, level 4 biosecurity. But if the disease kills instantly and selectively only animals of certain owners, ignoring physical borders, this defies all epidemiological logic. Prion proteins like mad cow take months. Hemorrhagic viruses take days. Instant and selective death of millions of animals simultaneously has no known natural pathogen that does this. World livestock would collapse. Supply chains for meat, milk, leather would evaporate. Hunger would come soon after. Our advanced veterinary technology has no answer for selective supernatural death. None. Sixth plague. Painful ulcers and boils on humans and animals. Exodus 9:10-11. The magicians themselves couldn't stand before Moses because of the sores. Today, advanced dermatology, antibiotics, corticosteroids, mass hospital treatment would be tried. But if billions of people develop ulcers simultaneously, the global health system collapses in hours. There aren't beds, there aren't stockpiled medications, there aren't enough professionals, and if the ulcers are treatment-resistant, as the text indicates, modern medicine only relieves symptoms without curing. Global productivity plummets. Pain prevents work. Hospitals overflow. Seventh plague, hail mixed with fire, falling from the sky, destroying crops and killing whoever was outdoors. Exodus 9:23-25. Today, weather alerts, underground shelters, interruption of outdoor activities would save many lives. But exposed agriculture would be devastated globally. Exodus says it destroyed all flax and barley. Applied globally, this means total loss of wheat, corn, rice, soybean crops in open fields. Greenhouses would protect something, but don't feed 8 billion. Strategic food reserves last 3 to 6 months. After that, mass hunger. Technology gives time, not solution. Eighth plague. Locusts in clouds so dense they covered all the earth and darkened the sky, eating all vegetation that remained from the hail. Exodus 10:14-15. Today, aerial pesticides, drones, controlled burning, even anti-insect lasers would be tried. Israel recently developed technology like this, but Exodus describes locusts in quantity that never existed nor will exist equal. Exodus 10:14 is categorical. If locust clouds cover entire continents, there isn't enough pesticide produced in the world to fight this. Natural swarms in Kenya in 2020 had billions of insects and devastated crops despite modern technology. Supernatural swarms would be orders of magnitude worse. Modern technology fails completely here. Food security goes to zero. Ninth plague, absolute darkness for 3 days, where no one saw anyone nor got up from their place. But Israelites had light. Exodus 10:21-23. Today, electricity, generators, flashlights, solar panels would solve artificial lighting. But the text says it was darkness that could be felt, suggesting something beyond absence of light. And if solar panels don't work because there's no sun, fuel generators last until the diesel runs out. 3 days of total darkness paralyzes global economy. Air transport impossible. GPS fails without solar reference. Temperature drops. Panic spreads. Technology gives localized light, but doesn't solve supernatural darkness covering continents. 10th plague. Death of every firstborn human and animal in a single night, from Pharaoh's son to the servant's son. Exodus 12:29-30. There was no Egyptian house without a dead person, but Israelite houses marked with lamb's blood were spared. Today, there exists absolutely no technology that prevents instant and selective supernatural death. Bunkers don't protect, hospitals don't save, military doesn't fight. If a destroying angel passes executing divine judgment, ignoring walls, doors, and security systems, all human technology is irrelevant. The only protection in the biblical account was obedience to divine instruction. Lamb's blood on the door, substitution, faith, nothing technological. And this plague alone would instantly kill about 1 billion people if applied globally today, considering that approximately 12 to 15% of the world population are firstborn. One night, 1 billion dead. No technology prevents. None. And that's exactly why this entire analysis impacts us so deeply. Not because the plagues are just distant historical events, but because they reveal an uncomfortable truth. There are levels of reality where technology is completely impotent. You can have satellites, you can have artificial intelligence, you can have advanced medicine, you can have powerful armies, but when facing direct supernatural intervention, none of this matters. And this puts us face to face with a reality that modern mentality hates to admit. We're not as powerful as we think. We're not as secure as we feel. We're not as self-sufficient as we proclaim. There exists a God who operates above the natural laws we know, and when he acts, there's no technology that resists. This isn't anti-science, it's humility before the creator of science. And this leads us to a very important reflection about our own life today. We live in an era where technology makes us feel invincible. We have vaccines, we have antibiotics, we have the ability to predict hurricanes, we have early warning systems for earthquakes. And with each advance grows the illusion that we control our destiny, that we dominate nature, that we don't need to fear anything or anyone. But technological capacity is not the same as spiritual invulnerability. You can have all the resources in the world and still be completely defenseless before divine judgment if your heart is hardened like Pharaoh's. This is exactly what the 10 plagues teach us, even after more than 3,000 years. Technology has changed everything around, but the need for humility before God remains absolutely the same, and the choice to obey or harden the heart continues to be the only variable that truly matters. So thinking about everything we've talked about up to now, the question remains that will echo in your head for entire days. If we face the 10 plagues globally today, with all modern technology available, how long would we survive before total collapse? The honest answer, based on everything we've analyzed, is at most 30 days. 30 days from the first plague to hunger, dehydration, infrastructure collapse and mass death. And that's being optimistic. In reality, probably less. And this proves something much deeper than technological fragility. It proves that our entire civilization, with all its complexity and advancement, is sustained only by God's mercy, keeping natural laws functioning predictably. The moment He decides to intervene supernaturally, all our confidence in human systems evaporates instantly. We survive not because we're strong, but because He is patient. And this truth should put us on our knees. And that's precisely why this whole story matters so much to our current reality, because it's not just a hypothetical study about ancient plagues. It's a direct warning about where we place our trust. You build your security around health plans, savings, insurance, technology, as if that protected you from everything. You accumulate resources as if they were walls against any threat. You trust in science as if it had definitive answer for every problem. And in the end, when something truly beyond human control happens, pandemic, natural disaster, global economic crisis, you discover that all that trust was illusory, that it was built on sand, that no human system saves you when God decides to act. You'll think twice about where your true security is after hearing this, or at least you should think seriously about it. And you know what's most surprising in all this? It's that the solution offered hasn't changed at all from Egypt until today. What saved the Israelites wasn't superior technology, wasn't military intelligence, wasn't accumulated wealth. It was obedience to a specific divine instruction: sacrifice a lamb, put the blood on the doors, remain inside the house. Faith expressed in action, trust that obeys even without fully understanding, and this pattern repeats throughout all relationship with God through history. It's not our resources that save us, it's our response to divine provision. In Egypt, it was lamb's blood. Today, it's the blood of Christ, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, not through technology and human capacity, but through substitutionary sacrifice and grace. This is the only protection that truly works against divine judgment. And it was already provided 2,000 years ago on the cross. And before finishing this entire analysis, there's one last detail that needs to be said about the 10 plagues and their significance for us today. Each plague attacked a specific god of Egypt. The first plague attacked Hapi, god of the Nile. The frogs attacked Heket, goddess with frog's head. The darkness attacked Ra, the supreme sun god. The death of the firstborn attacked Pharaoh himself, considered divine. It was a systematic demonstration that the God of Israel was above all Egyptian idols, above all false divinity, above all deified human power. And the same truth applies today. You can idolize technology. You can idolize science. You can idolize money. You can idolize your own intellect. But the moment divine reality intervenes, all these modern idols are exposed as completely impotent, exactly as the gods of Egypt were. The choice is yours. Continue trusting in idols that don't save, or turn to the living God who has real power over all creation. The consequences are eternal. So if you stayed here until the end of this entire analysis, first of all, you deserve a heartfelt thank you, because most people don't have this patience and this ability to face uncomfortable truths to the end. You were different, and that already puts you in a very special position. Now, if this analysis changed the way you see security, technology, and the true power of God, share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Send it to a friend, a family member. Send it to anyone who will benefit from this. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, subscribe now, because there's much more content like this coming. The 10 plagues of Egypt happened over 3,000 years ago. But human vulnerability remains exactly the same. and only divine protection through Christ offers real security. And your decision to subscribe and continue seeking truth can change not only your life, but determine where you'll spend eternity. Trusting in human systems that fail, or trusting in the God who has absolute power over all creation and offers safe refuge for those who obey.